Hey, what's going on, everybody? Whoa, get rid of the graphic. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. We are back from our holiday vacation. Hope everyone had a great holiday. Hope everyone was safe and happy out there. Got to see a bunch of family and eat a bunch of food. But we are back, and I brought some fire today. I brought some fire today. So today I've been trying really hard to get a paranormal investigator on here, UFO investigator. And from the people I can see three eyes watching us right now. So it's going to be a good episode. So today we have private UFO and paranormal investigator Ryan Stacey coming on. And without further ado, let's get started.
Howdy.
About to creep some people out and scare some people. How are you doing?
Oh, that's good. That's good. I was watching the intro there, and I was just wondering if I was in the right place. But this is good.
Yeah, yeah. We're about 10 episodes deep into this one. I had to change the name due to reasons I can't say. So
it's all good. It's all good. I'm here.
But but yeah. Welcome. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, go ahead and take a few minutes and introduce yourself to the audience out there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, my name is Ryan Stacey. I'm Canadian, and I'm actively involved in the disclosure movement here in Canada for UFOs. I'm also a private paranormal and psychogenic investigator. I've been doing this for a long time. I'm the former National Chief Investigator for MUFON Canada. I'm the former Director of Field Investigator Training for MUFON National. And I also own and operate a private investigation and security company. So that's...
nice. For people out there who don't know what MUFON is, could you explain that, please?
Yeah, so MUFON is the Mutual UFO Network, the oldest civilian and largest civilian-based UFO investigating volunteer program. Other than that, that's all I do is UFOs, nothing else.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So just UFOs. So why UFOs? Most of people that heard of UFOs or even like paranormal, like ghosts, Bigfoot, even are like scared. They don't ever want to do it. They don't want to ever come in contact. They don't ever want to be around it. So why did you pick UFOs and paranormal?
Well, I didn't really pick it per se. Paranormal was my roots. So I've always been involved with paranormal investigations. I was curious with all that other stuff. The way I got brought into ufology is I basically, as a private investigator, just started my business looking for clients. I found someone had reached out to me and need help locating their son. And then when I dived in deep to find out, what I was going to locate them for, she believed that he was abducted by aliens. So I took the case because I was, trying to start my PI firm at the time. And then when I did that, I ended up learning that he wasn't abducted by aliens. He just joined Scientology, which is, kind of interesting place to go. But that explained his absence and his disappearance and all this other stuff. So that's how I kind of got dragged into that part. But when I did that before, there was a couple other cases that kind of came through. And then eventually it led me to MUFON. Because someone was upset about something, so I was mediating. And then the guy basically said, "So you investigate for real?" I was like, "Yeah, like I do it for a living." And he's like, "What do you think about UFOs?" And I said, "Aren't those government machines?" And we had a laugh. And then he asked if I would, take the course and do whatever and help him out with some investigations. I said, "Sure," because I was just looking for something to do while I was waiting for clients. And then I was good at it because I'm a trained investigator, and I get sucked in the rabbit hole because there's a lot of weird things going on. But now, 7 years in, it's, the UFO stuff isn't really entertaining as much. But now I'm into the paranormal and the psychogenic, the Bigfoot, all that other stuff, because I think it's all connected. And it has to be.
Okay. This is where we agree, because I do have a feeling that like the paranormal and aliens and UFOs and all that stuff, it's all connected in some way. Like, I don't know why, I don't know how,
It's connected through us as the experiencer.
Okay.
Or
So what is your opinion about like us? Who are we? Are we like farmed by aliens? Are we just gonna be like alien slaves here eventually, or are we just like another species that happens to coexist in like a whole universe filled with all these different species?
So that's a loaded question. But to know that definitively, I think is what everyone in this industry is trying to, basically find out. But there's many possibilities. There's many, and depends on what spectrum you want to look at. So like, you take the biblical route. God made us in our image and our likeness and all this other stuff. Created all this and blah, blah, blah. And here we are. And then like, that's your answer. It's already there in the Bible. But then there's whether or not you interpret the angels and the demons as extraterrestrials, and then and their way they travel as, all these other things. So everything's kind of, it's all over the place, but it's been over the years has been, through propaganda and then, storytelling and the movies and everything. So there's a lot of stuff that goes to kind of mask what the truth really is, and whether or not the truth is known. That's the challenge. That's where the disclosure part comes in too. So like, we know that something isn't right, but we have the ability to ask these questions to our government, and then we get responses, and then we have to interpret these responses. But at the same time, the government has control of what information they release. So even if we asked that question, they're going to say we don't have any records on that because we're not going to tell you. So there's a lot of ways to answer that question. So what I kind of wanted to come back to is the reason why I investigate everything is because I believe that in each of these little conspiracies or these little theories, there is some truth. And once I'm able to solidify and find some truth in each of these avenues, the true truth or the whole truth would be revealed. Because a lot of people misinterpret. A lot of people are just focused on one part of the, of this rabbit hole. So for an example, easy example, some people will focus on UFOs. Some people focus on paranormal. How are they connected? Well, paranormal simply means just not normal. So if a flying saucer is in the sky and no one knows what it is, and it's making movements that we don't know about, that is technically paranormal. It's not normal. But then eventually over the years, as we start to learn more things, more science comes out, and we get the answers to all these things, that para removes and that becomes normal. So a lot of this paranormal spooky things or whatever is normal if you look into the psychogenic or the parapsychology part, where people are using their minds to move objects, manipulate, meditate, remote viewing. That's all paranormal too. But when you apply it to the science, it becomes more nuts and bolts that the UFO community can use.
Okay.
Right. So there's a lot of different avenues to look at it. The problem is that the people in each of these factions are trying so hard to be the king of the mountain in each of these different spectrums. And because they're so pigeonholed or have tunnel vision in their scope, they see the other ones as not important because it has nothing to do with based on what they think. But yet, if you work together, then you have more data, you have more understanding, you have more perspective, and then you get a better understanding of how this all works. So terminology is one of the big things. What you call it, a UFO, a UAP, an orb, whatever you want to call it. I created a classification system. It's called the Ultra Spectrum Classification System. For those of you who are familiar with with ufology, it's a enhancement to the Hynek and Vallée classification system, which was approved by Paul Hynek himself, so Alan Hynek's son. So with that classification system, what I've designed is a way to take all of these conspiracy theories or these little, I guess, silos in this rabbit hole and try to find a way to bring it all together into a universal term. So to use the paranormal so to use the orb as an example, so in the UFO community, we have a circular light in the sky. That could be a UFO, which could be a machine because it's attached to a machine, perhaps, and we can't see all of it. It could be isolated. It could be alone, right? Which could be, aerial phenomenon or anomalous phenomenon, whatever the A wants to be, unidentified. Then in the paranormal spectrum, you have, a spirit orb or a or dust of
Right.
orb. So in these spectrums, even though they don't communicate with each other, don't talk about paranormal, don't talk to me about UFOs, all that other stuff. They're describing and they're experiencing something similar. So the category for me would be aerial activity, because in both instances it's in the sky and it's active. Then it would be a sensory display. So another reason for that is in the UFO community, they rely on nuts and bolts like pictures and videos in order to prove their stuff. In the paranormal community, they rely on sensations and feelings and intuition. So that is hard to use as substantial evidence when one party uses one and not the other. So when you combine it, it makes it a little bit easier. Might have went off the rails there, but you're good. So with the UFO, so aerial active sensory display. So the reason why it's called a sensory display is because it takes into account that someone may have taken a physical photo of it, or someone may have seen it mentally in their mind and they drew it. So which sense was used from that? And then that becomes aerial activity, and then subcategories are machine or light. So it's either has characteristics of a machine or it's just a light. Now these lights could be machines, but it's just based on the observation. So at that point, the paranormal community and the UFO community can agree that whatever it is we're looking at, is aerial activity. One of our senses was used to observe it, and it's a machine or a light. And that helps the investigative process to determine whether we're looking for a light source or we're looking for a machine. And that helps steer that. So I guess in a nutshell, the main issue with all the phenomenons is that the people aren't working together.
Okay. So it's pretty much everyone's like out for themselves. Like no one's really sharing info or anything like that.
How about like religion, right? So we have many different types of religions, many different faiths out there. All believe. What do they all have in common? Well, they believe in a higher power for the most part, right? And so that shows all those ideas and those theologies and all those other things, they help work, but they'll still fight each other in the name of their own different God, when that God very well could be the same thing.
Right, exactly.
Right. So we all want the same thing, but yet now we're gonna get in a rabbit hole of why the world's the way that it is.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Depends on what hole you want to go down. But I mean, you got me in a deep hole right now, so I'm gonna wait for you to.
Right.
I don't know
exactly. But I want to go back to where you said like UFOs, aliens, and the paranormal are pretty much all connected. And it reminds me of a video that I just watched probably like a week ago. And it was The Extraordinary, the story of Stan Romniak. Have you ever seen that?
I believe so. The name sounds familiar.
Yeah, well, eventually, like in the I don't know, the cliff notes of it is pretty much he was abducted by aliens over and over again, and pretty much was labeled as a starseed and had like 7 children, alien children, with another woman from Earth, and it's a whole love triangle dilemma. But besides all that, he has like actual videos of aliens coming up to his window, peeking into his window, popping up through his window. But it seems that he's also seen shadow figures and orbs. So it's like it wasn't until you said something that you think that they're all connected that were kind of popped in my head that well, maybe they are, because this guy was seeing the paranormal and also seeing UFOs and being abducted and beaten up by aliens, apparently.
Yeah,
if this is all true.
Well, I mean, yeah. What is true? What's the definition of truth? What is anything real?
Exactly.
So the way that I help myself in that, because as an investigator, trained investigator, and I do this daily, I have to make sure that I rely on the facts, and I find all the constants and do whatever I need to do. So like all of these, and I have my personal beliefs on these theories and stuff like that too, of course, but that's based on the lack of evidence to say it doesn't exist. Just because it doesn't, you can't prove it doesn't exist, but you can't prove it does. So with when I investigate, I don't focus on the phenomenon. I study the people. So and how the phenomenon affects them, what words they use, what they compare it to, because that gives me a sense of how they were raised in terms of paranormal ufology. Where did they grow up on Star Trek? Are they Catholic? Like all these things, certain things instills a certain profile of an individual based on their belief system. And then when they have this experience, they may call it a bunch of things, and they might not even be calling it the right thing. And when I focus on the people, I'm also focusing on the observations of the people and the symptoms that come around with it. So there's negative effects to it. Some people have positive experiences and things like that too, but there are people that are negatively affected by it. Whether or not I believe that they were abducted by aliens or they're seeing shadow figures or not, doesn't matter at that level, because we're dealing with someone who is in a heightened state, very, very sensitive, and there's trauma there that needs to be taken care of. So when we get the information when they're in that, lack of a better word, damaged state, and then help them through with some treatment of some sort to regulate their emotions and balance their thoughts, and then come back and look at it, hey, you know what, let's put it around and blah, 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 and remove some of these things. And then what are we left with? The interesting thing about that process is once I rule everything out, and this is why I do it privately, because we get deep into private stuff, and it has to, you can't publish any of this stuff. We're realizing that there are some things that just don't make sense. So I get people drawing what they see, and when they draw what they see, because they can't always take a picture, it looks strange, it looks weird, does not look normal. And when you do that with one individual, it's not that great in terms of evidence, because it's just one person, especially if it's a drawing, right? When I investigate a whole bunch of different things, different bunch of people, and they all do the whole process, and then you get a photo, and that photo happens to look like this drawing, well, then you can you can add all that stuff together. But what I'm finding, though, even though I have majority of it are drawings right now, these people are drawing similar things, and they're calling them weird things that don't look like how they draw. So it's kind of hard to explain without showing you. It's on my most of these things are on my website anyways, experiencersupport.org. Let's take, for example, a shadow figure, that phenomenon. The way that they get drawn, sometimes they have a cloak, sometimes they don't, but these red eyes are a constant. And so there's a lot of things that these people start to remember. Now, are they getting that because they're watching the same shows, or or are they actually seeing these same things? There's a lot of explanations for that. But the interesting thing is when the report comes in, before I see these images, some would label it as an alien. Some would call it a shadow figure. Some would call it an apparition or a ghost. But then when you look at the images, they're all drawing the same thing. So there's evidence there that the interpretation of what they're seeing also is different. And that's based on how they were raised, based on what they understand and what they believe. And the problem with that is we can't really get to the bottom of it, because there's so many possibilities. There's so many mislabels, misuse. And then if you go back to the beginning on how this all started, whether that was intentional to throw us off, we're in a mess right now where it will never be solved unless we regulate it. And that's kind of where I'm focusing right now, is taking everything from everywhere, regulating it into a universal system to make sense of what is true and what could be possible. And then, the next is proving that, but that's somebody else's job.
Well, we do have some comments coming in. Let's see what people got to say. Casey Griffin, thank you for tuning in. My one friend told me when we were young that there was a boom and a light. Woke up to a gray looking over him. I was like, so. Ooh.
Okay. So
I've never. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Like, I've never seen, nor have I ever seen an alien. But I do think that you'd have to be naive to think that we are the only things in this entire universe with all the planets, all the universes, or not the universes, but all the galaxies, or maybe it is a multiverse. Who knows? But we have all the galaxies and all the planets. You have to be naive to think that we're the only things that are actually living here.
Mm-hmm. So the possibility that terrestrials existing is probable. It's high. And whether or not we're descendants of them, that's a different scenario altogether. We have to capture one. We have to know. We have to, and we need like public disclosure that tells us that they've studied it and they know and they can confirm all those things. So the gray phenomenon, a lot of people do witness that. That is common. But the history with the gray alien, that face really didn't become popular until like Roswell, and then that became a marketing thing, and now everybody is seeing that. Not to say that every case is like that, but I mean there's still a history of these images of things that the way that they should look like, based on what Hollywood projects. And some of my cases, when people draw what appears to be the typical gray, I'm interested in specific details that, like a mole or a certain, a missing finger or something like that. And sometimes people can remember that. It looked like a gray alien, but it was missing a finger. So, and things like that too. And we start to learn more characteristics about all these other things. But just because it looks like a gray alien doesn't mean it is a gray alien, right? So this is also an interpretation of what we're seeing and what we're believing. What the constant is the individual. The pattern is the individual tends to be sleeping and then in some sort of meditative state has the ability to see another being of many different shapes and sizes, and then that's concerning because there's interaction there, and then we're left with these thoughts and these visions without any help. You think it might be a dream. It could be a dream. But you just might be able to see into what I call the ultra spectrum or the ether. So there may be a group of people that have the ability, that sixth sense, to be able to see these things, and that's what's happening in this real time. Perhaps is they're in this meditative, relaxed state. They open their eyes and they see something, but they're still kind of in and out, and what they're seeing might actually exist there. Mm-hmm. It could be a dream, depending on how you think. It could be real. But do we also know if those creatures on the other side know that you can see them? Right. Because there's got to be a reaction on the other side. So like we use Ouija boards to try to communicate with the other side. What does that look like on the other side? You're sitting here, all of a sudden someone do something and then something falls over. So with that line of thought, I like to look at the poltergeist phenomenon and the Ouija phenomenon, all this other stuff. So like if we look into the I guess praying. Okay, praying. I use this analogy quite a lot. I think this is the best way to go about it too. Heather says, I've stopped watching shows to make sure my conscience is clean. Good idea. Yeah, just read it. Yeah. Good idea. So
right, yeah, don't watch Hollywood, guys.
It's funny, I was having a conversation about that before I hopped in this podcast. Where was I going here? Poltergeist and meditation and praying. Okay, so we know the mind is strong, and we have the ability to do many things with our minds. It's possible that we could move objects. It's possible that some people can remote view. There's psychic mediums out there. There's a whole bunch of different types of people using their mind to do different things. Now, they trying to communicate with what they believe to be extraterrestrial or paranormal. Because if you do a CE5, you know what a CE5 is?
I
Stephen
don't.
Greer. Okay, so for Stephen Greer is a ufologist as well. He does what's called a close encounter to the fifth kind, which is basically human initiated contact. He'll meditate and he'll get and their group will have like a UFO or an orb show up in their sky. So that process of meditating to draw in that extraterrestrial life in the UFO spectrum is no different than us using a Ouija board in the paranormal spectrum, because we're using a medium, we're using our minds, and we're asking and wishing for a result from the other side, from the same place. So the constant in that is the people using their minds on the UFO side, paranormal side. The other constant is using some sort of device or mechanism. So the CE5 movement is tones and music. The paranormal side is the Ouija board itself, or perhaps, a full-blown medium not needing to do that or whatever. And then they get into this relaxed state, this calm state. They use their mind, and then they ask, and then they get a result. One calls it aliens, one calls it UFOs, paranormal. I like to think that it's likely humans. And what I mean by that, as an example, because we are in different time zones, different places, doing a whole bunch of different things. There's so much going on. How do we know what's going on? So imagine the scenario where two people are about to end their day at the same time. One person is here praying at the end of their day, asking for information to help them with the problem. On the other side of the world, someone is praying or giving out positive light, positive energy to send out to someone who might need it. So while at the same time, so say, for example, I'm the one asking, I meditate, I'm praying, and I'm saying, God, give me a sign, tell me what to do, and blah, blah, blah. And this person on the other side of the world is saying, live well and do good and love each other and blah, blah, blah. But I hear that here. I am asking, my intent is asking God for this message, and I get a response to that. I believe that was God. But it could have been a human being. It could have been extraterrestrial. It could have been government influence. So there's a lot of mess that's already in this thing. And what I've created, and with my studies and stuff, is by removing all this fluff, is just trying to narrow it all down to what's possible and what's probable and likely. And when you focus on the people, we are the aliens. We are the beings. We are, and if you go back to the first passage, or not the first passage, but Book of Genesis, let's make man in our image and our likeness. Right from the get-go, we were told that we are examples of God. And and the key thing too is in our image and our likeness, which is plural, not one. Keep that in mind. So now, what do you believe? Is the Bible, Christian Bible, a lie? Oh, is any Bible a lie? So then you got to look at religions and compare the constants, and they all have deities, and they all have numbers, and some worship planets. So there's many different versions of everything. But to get the source, to figure out the true reason for it, A, you got to have an experience and believe it, or B, die and find out what's going on. Or we are Stardust. Stardust is, biologically, What are stars? Are stars even real? Like there's so many rabbit holes. So many.
You could go on forever and ever on this one. But we had a comment from Heather. Had a great over me too, and fought. They put me back in this line, and then a follow up. I just remember fighting with all my might for them not to probe me.
Okay. So that's a serious thing. A lot of people do explain the event happening that way. It's not rare. This probing thing, people tend to make fun of it, but many people get probed in other ways other than the typical back end way that everyone seems to think that's the only way, right? So the word
right
ruins it when people make fun of it, but that's part of the propaganda there. Dan Jones, I see you. Hi, buddy. Thanks for tuning in. Dan is a guy I used to work with MUFON. So nice. What is happening in that scenario? What could be happening in that scenario, right? If it's extraterrestrial, that is based on your vision, what you see. And if you see it and it looks like a gray alien, and maybe it is a gray alien, maybe it's not, maybe it's an owl, maybe it's a human being, and your vision is a little bit fuzzy depending on the circumstances. We can't be so dead set on what that creature is, but we can all agree that it's a being of some sort is observed while you're having this experience. A being of some sort is fighting with you. That also could be a human being. And, and then this being has the ability to do stuff to you and surgery and all these other things. They could be humans or future humans, evolution, and things like that. There's some theory out there that the alien is a fully evolved human, thousands and thousands.
I was going to ask you about that. Yep.
Yeah. So,
that's kind of my theory on it.
But then time travel would have to exist, and then there's a rabbit hole there. So that means we're in the past and they're in the future, and then so when you investigate everything together, that's what I'm saying is like one single paradigm, if you will, is not going to get a definitive answer because we're so fixed and focused on solving that problem. When I've gone down every single rabbit hole, and what I'm trying to find is figure out how these rabbit holes, how these all play together, how it's all connected. How would it be possible? Because especially as a private investigator, when I'm doing surveillance and stuff, I have to spend a great deal of time profiling the suspect. I need to figure out and predict what kind of person they are, what do they eat, and when they eat that type of food, what does that actually mean? What kind of person do they are? So I can manipulate an environment where I could hide to capture evidence in order to win my case. So this whole scenario here with me, I apply those skills to the phenomenon because I'm trying to think, how could we get away with this? So if aliens exist, okay, if that's in fact what we're experiencing, a gray being that comes from another place, we don't know, we can't say for sure in that instant unless they tell you, hey, I'm from da 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 da. But sometimes they don't. We assume they're from outer space. The word extraterrestrial means, does not necessarily mean extra like outer space. It means extra land. So getting into a really deep rabbit hole here. But actually, I'll throw this back to you before I get into this one. But what is your opinion on the possibility of the shape of the Earth being different than what we're told?
Well, most people see the Earth as some see it as flat, and most people see it as like a big, beautiful marble that sits in the middle. But I agree, it's more like egg shaped, like more like it's narrow on the top and egg on.
What's interesting about that is something we should know. We should know by now what shape the Earth is. The only evidence that we have comes from NASA, and that blue marble image, when you match that to all the other ones, it's out of proportion. It's CGI. We don't actually have any actual real photos of the Earth, allegedly. So we get all these theories around the shape based on these measurements that we take. So flat can be a possibility, egg shape could be a possibility, pear-shaped globe. All those are theories, but none of them have been proven to be 110% true unless you're an astronaut.
Right.
But do you trust your government enough and all these other things? You kind of get into all that other stuff. So the reason why I kind of wanted to touch on that is the extra land part. So in the flat Earth rabbit hole, it would require us to be surrounded, encompassed by a giant wall of ice. So that's what they say Antarctica is. It's not, that's that. So imagine that is the way that it is. Right. What's beyond the ice wall? So if we can't get out of that, forget this conspiracy of whether we're trapped or not, and all this other stuff, dome, none of that stuff really matters in terms of that, but just focusing on the wall. What's after that wall? And if there's other land outside of that wall that we can't get to because we don't have access, the facts are we can't travel to Antarctica. We can't, there's a treaty there. It's been, there's a whole bunch of things preventing us from exploring that. But they know. So imagine beyond that, there's extra land. And a being from that extra land comes over here. That is an extraterrestrial land. And if we can communicate telepathically here and on Earth with other lands, then that makes sense. That means the beings are here on Earth, but that also means the government is hiding land, which means they're hiding resources, right? Which is a deep, deep, deep rabbit hole. But with the flat Earth scenario, a lot of these things tie in to make sense as it being possible. If the Earth was flat, then that means the government lies. Well, we know the government lies, so that's not far off. That means we never went to the moon. How many ufologists actually believe that we landed on the moon? A lot of ufologists use the fact that the moon landing may have been hoaxed or faked to prove their point that they're hiding aliens. The flat Earth movement uses the same argument to prove that they're hiding the shape of the Earth and they're hiding God. So these two conspiracy groups, one left wall, one right wall. But when you bring them together, they're both human beings, groups of human beings that believe that the national, whatever it's NASA. I'm Canadian. I can't remember it's Canadian Space Agency for us, CSA. What does NASA stand for?
National
Aerospace.
Aerospace Association, something like that. Yeah.
But what they have
I'm an American. I don't even know.
Is they both groups don't believe the evidence that organization is displaying to the world. And if those people were to work together instead of fighting together, because they think the idea of the Earth being a different shape is like crazy, but yet they believe in UFOs. You understand how there can't be a difference. We have to accept it all. It either all exists or none of it exists. And for it all to exist, to make sense, the Earth would have to be. Thank you, National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather.
Yeah. So you understand where I'm going? So in order, so that's me connecting one theory with another theory in order to make sense of the probability of another theory. Again, all theories, it's speculation, but it fits, right? So the yeah, Dan says NASA stands for never a straight answer. Yeah. Say need another 7 astronauts, but that might be a little deep, a little dark. But anyway, so we can turn this conversation however you want, but I'm just trying to get to use that as an example to pinpoint that these individual conspiracy holes that we go down to are unique, but if we connect them together, then we get this whole huge mother of all lies. Now, is that true? Well, how is that possible? They would have to keep it secret from us. Is it possible for the entire, NASA and all the millions of dollars that they have that they're able to pay everyone hush money to keep them quiet? Like, is that realistic? Who's not squeaking? All these other things to actually carry these things out logistically. It's tough. So there's also realistic scenarios in place that makes it not probable, but yet it's close. We're not going to be able to figure out what exactly is going on, but if we can get close enough, then we can understand it. If the Earth is if we're in a dome, who cares? That just means we can't leave this. That just means we can't leave this place. And if God created a safe place for us, then that makes sense. You put us in a bubble and to take care of us, and then they're doing things outside. That stuff makes sense. But if that is true, then all this space stuff is fake. If the space stuff is real, the pictures of the planet aren't very real. So there's a lot of holes. So who do we trust? And that's where the mind goes. Well, this is why we get into these rabbit holes. Is we're smart, we understand, we know that it doesn't make sense when we observe with our eyes, but we're not getting a full truth from our leaders. Do the leaders know?
Right.
Maybe they'll, do they actually know? Or are they just are they just like us and they're just trying to manage the whole world because they don't know why they're too busy with everything else?
I think they know more than what they say they know, but I think what they know isn't a lot. Like, I think because even if you take all our telescopes that we have and you point them directly at the sky and you point them in different spots, you're only covering maybe 1% of the sky.
Yeah. So
with something that's so huge, like there's no way you can know all the answers. You can maybe be able to have some, maybe able to piece something together. I don't think aliens have. I'm one of those people that don't think aliens have touched down here on Earth. I think what we're seeing are probably drones or some kind of something like mechanical, like spy equipment.
And it could
I don't
be
think it's from us.
Could be secret technology. And what's wrong with that? The government keeps secrets from us anyways because they don't want our enemies to know their secrets. So they have to keep it from us to keep it from them. So if they have flying saucers and that's a secret, they're not going to tell us that because they don't want them to know.
Right.
If they have aliens and they're using that as a weapon, they're not going to tell us because they don't want them to know.
Yeah, because basically if they tell us, if you tell your people, you're telling your enemies too. So that's pretty much how it is. So yeah, we're like pretty much the government is sworn to secrecy about all this. I was kind of hoping once we had Trump in office, he would break silence on it, but
well, you might get him back. He's running again, isn't he?
I don't know.
I think he's running 24 or something. Yeah.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
But yeah, but someone came up on here about portals, brought up portals in Antarctica. Now, do you think it's because why we have the you can't go to Antarctica treaty, like you can't go there, is because of there are secrets to this continent that they don't want anybody to know, or is it just because of its being so dangerous, or a mixture of both?
It could be both. I mean, both are probable. The evidence shows that Admiral Byrd, had, traveled there and explained. He's the first person to basically explain land beyond the wall. So that's where the idea came from, essentially, from his travel. So after that happened, and what did they do? They did Operation High Jump, I think, where they tried to get onto it, and then Operation Fishbowl, where they tried to blow the firmament up. There's a lot of historical events that have taken place to suggest that they may have discovered something. Now, once they've discovered it and couldn't do anything about it, what do we do? What do we do and moving on? So perhaps the nations that have control, and I think it's 12, maybe 15 now, I can't remember. From what I've read and what I understand, in order for a country to own it, you have to be able to surround it. So if you can't surround Antarctica, then no one can own it. And if it's a wall of ice that goes around 360 degrees and you can't circle it because there's something else on the other side, then it would make sense for them to protect what's inside here as well as keep off what's outside there. And if we are in a bubble, and we're not allowed to go to Antarctica, I would hope that what we don't see is a bunch of machines and technology that's aimed that way and is fighting off everything that's trying to come in. And the thing about that is we can't change that. We can't change any of these things. The shape of the earth really doesn't matter how we live our life. What matters is if they did lie, and then they've been lying to us all this time. So once they start the lie, then they got to keep the lie. And then over years and years and years, there's so many things they got to do to keep this thing going, if that was true. And that's with any lie. But what I always reference to, focusing again on the person, is why would they lie? And then you have to look at the thought process. What's a better idea, a better thought, should of us knowing that we are trapped here, or the possibility of there being another place to go? When you die, you go to heaven. So this idea of us being able to escape and to explore in space is a nice thought to have, to not feel trapped, when in reality we could be. So they lie to us, but it's to protect us, because if we all knew we were trapped, we would all be chaotic right now. But that doesn't mean that's true. That's true. But it's why they lie. Why do they not give us UFO disclosure? Well, maybe because some of those are machines that they're using to defend our countries. That's why they lied. I'm okay with that. Or that's why they're choosing not to tell me that. But if they're lying about the shape of the earth, that's the lie of all lies. They're hiding God, hiding everything. They're hiding, everything. But
because if you're going to lie something about something as dumb as the shape of the earth, then what else are you going to lie about? Like bigger, huge things.
You can't prove that to be true. And you also the globe is a theory as well. Gravity is a theory. It's not proven. But it's, what we use to explain dropping things. But then there's, the argument is density. But I don't care about any of that stuff, because that's them trying to prove it. The point is we want to understand what our purpose is. So that way, when we make these choices in life, we hope we end up somewhere. We're grinding, we're working, we're paying taxes, and it's hard, and we're fighting the people. We're fighting our government, asking for answers, and we think they're hiding all these things. And that's just part of the trauma. That's part of us, expressing ourselves, because we're stuck. And we're stuck in this life. What purpose do we have when we die? All these other things, advanced civilizations and all this other stuff. So if we feel that way, and in reality, we actually are that way, it's a normal feeling, because we understand that. But this idea of there being another place when we pass, that gives us hope. That allows us to continue to grind for a long period of time in order to pay off all these things and give all these other things away to keep whatever thing is going. So if there's an afterlife, then that would make sense. When we die, we'll go to heaven, or we'll go to hell, or we'll go wherever, or we'll go nothing. All those different beliefs, we don't know. We can't confirm until we die. And those who have near-death experiences, they have, their mind goes somewhere. That could be cosmos, space, and time. We don't even know if that's even the same thing as death. It's close to death, but that might not even be the same thing.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but have you heard of the whole DMT thing? It's like if you do a DMT trip, that's pretty much what you see when you die.
Yeah, so that comes from
or where you go.
The idea that when we die, DMT is released in our brains, and then it helps us go. So by taking that in advance, then you get an idea. The problem with that is people will see that, and if they're down in their luck, they might overdose or do something, because they think that they're going to go there because it's beautiful. So we get all these, we are trapped, we are stuck, and we don't have any guidance other than our government leading us that way. So the hope, with my understanding, with the way that we are right now, is that's the way that it is. There's people, there's extraterrestrials, and then there's hybrids. So I believe that some of us are hybrids, where the extraterrestrials may be able to communicate with us in whatever shape and form. There may be good ones, there may be bad ones. There might be a combination of both, depending on their motive. Some people, the abduction phenomenon could be the people studying the psychic abilities of our human beings to make sure we evolve. They might not be actually doing it to hurt them. It's scary as hell, but it might be to test or to fix or to heal. We don't know that. Every case is different, right? So I kind of lost my I'm stuck here.
So
go on and on and on and on. But for people.
Yeah, we're definitely going down some rabbit holes here. Sorry, guys, try to keep up, but we're definitely going down rabbit holes.
Yeah, it's okay. I know a lot of things, so I'm just trying to keep it relevant. But yeah, I'm gonna need help out of this hole. What hole you want to go back into? I just don't want to go deeper. Try not to go deeper.
Right, exactly. So, like my whole thing is that this is pretty much what I don't want to say I believe, because it's a strong word, because believe is a strong word. I really don't say anything that I believe in anything, because I believe in the realm of possibilities. There's so many possibilities out there. It's hard just to focus and believe on one thing. But one thing that I constantly think about is that see these gray aliens all the time, and they have arms, legs, eyes, nose, mouth, also a big head. They got a big head too, so they're probably very smart, but they don't have any sexual organs. So kind of like it's a theory-ish. It's like maybe they're us from the future, not like me, and then there's me over there, but they're our species in the future, and they kind of messed up somewhere with like technology, and they kind of made them not be able to reproduce. So now they're trying to come back and say, "Hey, wait a minute, we're gonna keep an eye on these people. That's why they're flying over and keeping and grabbing information. We're gonna keep an eye on him, and then when this part happens where we kind of merge with technology and our organs go away, we need to step in and go, no, we need to stop it right here." So that's kind of my thing, is that they're trying to save themselves from being extinct. Maybe.
Well, it's a good theory, and in order for that to be possible, as I mentioned earlier, time travel would have to also be possible, which means this moment right now has already happened because they're living their future. And then something we do here affects the future, then they're going to go back and change it and do all those other things, and that's where we get deja vu.
Right.
You know, little blips in the timeline, allegedly. Another theory I've heard on the Greys is some believe them to be androids, robots. Others have theorized that that they're wearing costumes or a uniform of some sort. It's like a space suit. So there may actually be sex organs underneath that, but you don't see them on the outside because they're wearing a space suit.
Right. Okay.
Right. So these are all different interpretations, but that information comes from various studies and talking to various people, and then concluding on the way they describe it and then making a theory. But what we really need is one to just show up and be like, "Hey,
this is what's up.
This is what happened. Sorry, we're late. About 2023 years to come back here. Something bad happened. We're here." And we're going to take it from here, blah, blah, blah. That's exactly what we need, but we don't have that. But we believe in that because we need something to believe into. We need something to hope to, because we don't want to think we're stuck. We don't want to think there's the end. What's the point of life if there's no hope?
If this is it, it's sad. I'm just saying, with everything that goes on up there, out there, around us, this is it. It's sad.
Why do I got to live until I'm 80 if I'm not going to get any further, right? Why do you quit a job when you can't go any higher up in the ladder? So, like, the idea is good. Well, I understand the idea, which makes it more terrifying to believe the possibility that they are lying, because there are 8 billion people in this world that they need to not fight back and destroy everything. So 8 billion people need to have hope, need to have something to look forward to. And if that's what they're selling back to us, and they're protecting the wall or protecting whatever, keeping us contained as animals, if that's the goal, then who are they working for? Why are they making us do that? Who do they report to? Do they report to a shadow government, or is that shadow government aliens? Or, someone has to be in charge of all that in order for this to be possible.
Right.
Or, like I said, all of it has to exist, or none of it exists. Or this is all just make-believe, and we're all crazy. We're all mentally ill, and we're just, making sense of shit as we see it. And, this is where we ended up.
even we got to think about, though, even if this is all fake and this is about like a simulation, we'll say somebody's up there pressing the button. So something's got to happen after this. I don't know. But
right. So
before we go,
is in charge of this.
Right,
what are we doing here? What are we doing here to assist anything outside of this? And I think with the pandemic kind of gave a real good reflection of the essential jobs, because everyone had to shift to and change and do all these important things that are important to maintain society. All of these other side jobs, little hobby jobs and things like that, they all had to shut down or try and struggle and all these other things. So what that actually showed is a variance of how many of the things we need do we have, and how much of how much of this is waste, in a sense. So a lot of us had to convert and change jobs and do things that were more in line with taking care of the rest of the world, because we were in a panic. But that also showed us how, all these other things weren't as important to sustaining our life. So that suggests that no matter what we're doing, no matter who's in charge, no matter what container we're in, there's a reason to keep us all alive. We're needed for something. Are we needed as a life source for an extraterrestrial race? Are we needed to mine minerals for the other planet, the other areas outside of that? We won't know that, but we're doing the work here. But in order to hide that lie, there would have to be some freedom and some variance out there to know that we have choice, the illusion of choice, right?
Right.
But in reality, as soon as we break the law or do all these other things that interferes with the master plan, our rights are taken away. We're all of a sudden not important. Get rid of us because it's interfering with that plan.
Right.
What is that plan? Who are we working for? Because we're you know what I mean? Like, you see, like, so
where's Alex Jones when you need him?
the idea of the government being in contact with some sort of higher level organization that's in control of something larger than us is highly probable.
Yes.
But it's, again, we can't prove that unless we work for them, or we die and we get the all-seeing eye and we see everything. So
you can't come back and tell people. That's the only thing that sucks about dying.
Well, maybe you
can't come back and tell them. Maybe you can.
Maybe you don't want to. Who knows?
You can.
Right. So my focus right now with my study is, when I work with cases and I have this information and I have this understanding, in the moment, they're not that deep or dark into a rabbit hole. I'm talking about a collaboration of everything. But to them, it just might be a sliver of all these things we've just talked about. And it's real for them, and it's traumatic for them. And they're human beings, and we need to take care of them, help them get through it. And if they believe that they're psychic, and they believe that they can see ghosts, and they're using that ability to help people, help others like that, then we want to encourage that, because it's positive. It might not be real, but it's better than saying, well, why don't you use this remote viewing ability and, invade the White House or something, like you can use power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
So like, if these things exist, then what side are we on? Because there's good people, there's bad people, and then there's people that are in the middle, that know the plan and is just letting it happen but like stepping in, like a CEO stepping in, doing their checks once in a while to make sure that the bottom line is still running, but everything else is variable. They don't care. And that's, that is the way that this world is running. But for what? Who's to gain from this? Are we just going to pay tax dollars and then all this money to give that's virtual, that doesn't actually exist, to give to someone else on another that probably doesn't even need money? That doesn't make sense. So that's part of the illusion. Are we farming minerals and giving those minerals to sustain people, or are we a host? So we are just pawns. We could be pawns. We could be a life source. We could be food. You know, we want to talk about missing children, all the missing children. Jesus.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Let's talk about rabbit holes. There we go. That's a whole nother hour. We could have a 3-hour podcast tonight.
I can keep going. So that's my understanding of the way that it is. Now,
right.
How do we move forward? Right? You know, you love your neighbor, you know, love your people, do whatever you can. If you had an experience, you know, talk about it, share it. You know, don't keep it inside because that stuff hurts. Take pictures. Yeah. Where you
don't edit.
Don't edit it. You know, put a hidden camera in your pajamas. That way you can get a video of you being abducted and we can catch the whole damn thing. But, you know, people say some people say we are captured and put in tanks and they take our energy whilst we are in the Matrix. Now, where do these ideas for movies come from? You know, like experiencer testimonies and things like that too. And a lot of these ideas do come from experiencer testimonies. Whether or not the validity or the credibility of that experiencer at the time is truthful, but how do you rule that out? And that's where it was interesting when in the past they didn't really accept any of this mental phenomenon because they couldn't prove it. You know, you're crazy, you're schizophrenia, here's some schizophrenic, here's some medication, you know, go away because we don't we don't want to touch that. We can't prove that, but that might be the truth. You know, keeping us sheltered from the truth. But they also tested now MK Ultra. You know, they tested the mind. Like there's evidence that they knew something, and then they stopped, or did they stop because they didn't want to do it anymore, or they stopped because they knew they could do it and they needed to cover it up so people didn't see them using it. You know,
they were using like heavy doses of LSD during that time too. So I don't know. LSD's not a trip.
Where did they get the information from? Right. So where's the idea come from? So if this person has an experience of us being in tubes or them in tubes, is that a dream? And did they get that? When did they get that idea? Was it after the Matrix came out, or was it before the Matrix came out? Because that happens in the Matrix, right? So if it's an experience back then we can rule out the fact that movie may have, you know, subliminally implied a dream. But even if they saw it afterwards, the people who created the movie, where did they get the idea to put that in there? Right? And then you can go back and back and back. So these ideas come. Art is an idea. When you draw and you do all these other things, where does that come from? It comes from the ether, from the ultra spectrum, from the space and time where all this hive consciousness comes from. Right. So these weird visions could be realities, but we don't know where and we don't know when. Because we could very well be seeing into the future. We could be seeing into the past. We could be seeing into another dimension. When we dream, we could be awake. This could be a dream right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So, wow. See, we just flipped the whole world upside down and within an hour. Good job, Ryan.
Thanks. Hope you guys can sleep tonight.
Right, exactly. We just pretty much told you we don't know what the hell's going on, and we're just wandering around clueless.
But do we have to know? We want to know because it's hard. Life is tough. Life is hard.
Could we even fathom it? To be honest. But before we go, I just want to talk about. Oh, go ahead.
I just want to say one final thought here. Just what we do, as long as we take care of each other, as long as we're happy, as long as we're not harming each other, that's what's got to stop. The violence has to stop. Right? This could be my Canadian and me being the peacekeeper here, but I'm heavily suggesting that the sooner we stop fighting with each other and the sooner we start working together, and all these conspiracies we'll end up in truth. And once we have the truth and you have the understanding, maybe you'll protect the secret too. Or just take care of the people that aren't awoken yet. Because to get to this stage where I'm at, a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, a lot of stuff that I had to work through because I needed to convince myself I was wrong, and I failed to do so. So to get to this level of crazy, there's a transition. So when you notice other people having these experiences, try not to judge them, understand them, accept them, talk to them. Share your own experiences, compare and contrast, but just As long as it's not forcing you to do harm, then trust it. And if it's doing bad things to you, call the police.
Right.
Those are crimes. It's against the law for people to come into your room while you're sleeping.
Yeah, exactly. Whether alien or not, it'd be perfect. They have that. They have body cams.
Yeah.
So there, it's on video. It'd be great. You could all see it all. But before we go, real quick, I did put a post out on Facebook. I think a few days ago, and pretty much it asked if aliens touched down today. Do you think humankind would go into utter chaos? And I'm going to ask you the same thing because the things I got, the comments I got on that post were pretty funny. I'll share some of them, but I want to ask you that same thing.
Yeah.
Are we ready? Are we ready?
No, because like the pandemic is an example of how we were unable to come together for a global problem. We failed that very miserably, and we're still going through it. Right or wrong, justifications and beliefs and wherever side you're on, but there wasn't enough unity in order for us to get a hold of that, because that still exists. It's still getting worse. And if that was a plan, obviously more of us need to be, part of that plan. So they're going to keep that going until they get their numbers. But if it's real, it's because we're divided and we're not in agreement of the science and all these other things. And that's a whole bunch of other things to do that. So that could have been a test. It could still be, aliens could just be like, look, they're not ready, but it all depends on the approach. If it's the government, the United States telling us that it's real, would you believe it? I don't know.
No, I don't think
right?
so.
But if the actual being showed up and did like somehow an extraterrestrial version of a broadcast, and we're all put on the same page and we all feel the same feeling, and then we all understand, then yeah. But it would, like, God's got to show up. He owes like 2023 years of child support for Mary there. So
pay up.
Yeah, she got bills. She's got bills to pay.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I'm in complete agreement with you on that one. We are just not ready. Like, maybe even if there was like some kind of like peaceful broadcast, I still think you'll have about 20%.
Well, it depends on how many people
trying to shoot him down.
It depends on how many people you need. That's the thing. We don't know the end game. So when the pandemic happened, not everybody who had a job needed to have the job.
Right.
They had enough to do the jobs that were needed, and when they realized they were short, they created more jobs, and now that balanced out. Right? Yeah. But how many extra human beings do the extraterrestrials need for their end game? And that's where this psychic ability kind of comes in, is perhaps when they're studying us, they're creating this psychic phenomenon for us, and we're evolving into psychic beings. And maybe that's where that starseed comes in too. There's only, I think, in one of the theories is there's only like 100 souls that can be recycled in the whole world. So like maybe that's the number. They only need that for whatever purpose. So as long as those souls keep recycling for whatever needs to be done, then we get there. But none of this stuff is going to help you go to school or cut your grass and do any of these things, right? It's
right.
What I don't want is people suffering.
Agree. Oh, we got one more comment here. Oh, shrooms will unlock the truth. Yeah, I heard about it a lot about that too. Psilocybin.
Yeah, they're bringing it to another realm.
Will unlock it. Yeah, I've heard that too. But yeah, I don't think we're ready. We're not quite ready. Not there yet. Maybe the next 100,000 years. But I am very interested in this. Go ahead.
I was just going to say some of us are ready. It's just a question of whether or not enough of us is ready. I don't think it has to be all of us.
Right.
But as soon as enough
maybe
of us
the ones that are ready.
Yeah,
maybe the ones that are ready, once we die, that's what we do. So we go up there and try to get them back here. It's crazy to think about all the possibilities out there. But we are running out of time. I do want to have you come back probably in about a month or two. We'll come back and talk some more. because there's so many other questions that just popped in my head while we were doing this. So I can do a whole nother episode on this.
Yeah, no, that's
I do
fine.
want to thank you for taking time out of your day.
Thank you for having me.
I do want to thank you for taking time out of your day. Yeah. Thanks for coming on, and go ahead, and if you have anything to promote your website, anything, go ahead.
Yeah, so I have a Facebook page, so www.facebook.com/heedtheworld. I have a YouTube channel called the Experiencer Support Association. That's an organization that I created that's a combination of my investigations and providing support for experiencers that are affected by the phenomenon. So there's resources that will help people with what I've been talking about. I also have a podcast called Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, which airs every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So we're returning for season 5 next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern time, live on YouTube. We have a thing called Experiencers Anonymous. So you go to our website, www.experiencersupport.org. January 25th, it's a virtual group meeting where you can pop in, use your cam or not, hide, change your name, do whatever, and just listen to other experiencers share their experiences. It's kind of like an AA meeting, but for experiencers. And then we have a whole bunch of podcasts and programs on our thing. And I'm focusing on research with UFO disclosure in Canada. I currently have over 10,000 documents that's never been seen. And I'm working on hiring an intern to help me upload those documents. Tessa rocks. Thanks, Dan. You rock.
Oh, nice.
You rock, man.
Hell yeah. But again, thank you for coming on. We're going to have you come back here in a probably 6 to 8 weeks, and we'll do this again.
Sounds
I
great.
had a blast, sir. Thank you again for coming on. Awesome.
Yeah,
but yeah, everyone, thank you for tuning in, all the comment, everything, the discussions. I greatly appreciate that. We are back every single week now. We will be here every single Saturday. Be sure you tune in next week. We have Eric Freeman Sims coming on, and he is the host of the Unseen Paranormal podcast. So we're not done yet. We're still going down. We're going to be talking about some more paranormal and some more aliens next week, some more UFOs. And that's it. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend. And I love you guys. Stay up. Peace.